Hi, everyone, and welcome to the IT Service Desk panel. I am among experienced individuals that are in the Milwaukee area that are excited to talk to you about what they're doing in their current roles and how to connect you and give you advice for your future roles. I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Jasmin Treske, and I am the Program and Events Coordinator at the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. And then I wanted to go ahead and start by just going around, having each of you introduce yourself, talk about your current role, and then maybe give us some highlights and discuss what your journey has been like to lead you to where you're at today. Casey, let's start with you.
Yeah, greetings. My name is Casey Buchta. I am the current IT operations manager here at Northwestern Mutual Insurance. In my current role, I'm leading our entire support organization. So tier 1 help desk, our tier 2 desktop teams, our user administration, and our network operations center. The journey to here, it's been a 20-year journey. Like many entry-level folks, started at the help desk and just learned over the years that it's really truly service that differentiates you among your IT peers, and it really allows you to become an integrated part of the business.
Thanks, Casey. James, what about you?
Hello, everybody. So I am a graduate at University of Florida in computer engineering. Spent a lot of my early career really on the business side of technology, leading technology teams. And then I moved from there and worked for a company called Employ Milwaukee, where I spent a lot of time really connecting the community to opportunities from training and then open IT positions. And while there, I had an opportunity to be involved in the early grassroots effort of the Tech Hub initiative, learn about all of the exciting stuff that was going on from a technology perspective at Northwestern Mutual, and said that I had to connect to it and had to be a part of it. So from there, now I'm in a role at Northwestern Mutual, been here for just over a year as the digital ambassador program lead. And really what that is that I lead a team that is driving technology adoption throughout our whole organization, and then really helping people understand how they can use technology to do their best work.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Jamie, what about you?
So my name is Jamie Garancis. I'm originally from the Milwaukee area. I graduated from UW-Milwaukee with a communications degree that let me into retail for a little bit, where you're always building teams. And I've always had a love of IT. I just more like a love of interest of where people, how they've built their careers and what they've done. That led me to TEKsystems. I started for them in the Appleton office, and then I moved down to Milwaukee about probably 14 years ago now. So my job all day long, every day, is to talk to people in the IT space and match them basically up with jobs in primarily the Milwaukee market. So again, I love IT. I love everything it's been doing, been able to do. I love how it's transformed over the years. I'm not someone who's going to fix your IT, but I can certainly help you network and find jobs in that space.
Networking is extremely important, especially in building your career. So that's an important job to have. James, what does a typical workday look like for you in your position?
For me, it's really about providing really direct tech support and resources to my team of individuals that are pushing that adoption of new technology and really enhancing the overall digital experience. So I have a team of 97 digital ambassadors, and they represent all the departments within our company at Northwestern Mutual.
Thanks. Casey, what about you?
Sorry, repeat the question. Zoom meetings.
No problem at all. So what does a typical day or a week look like for you in your current role?
Oh my goodness. I don't know that there is a typical day, quite honestly. The service desk is, it is the soup du jour. It is, it depends. Is it month end? Is it month beginning? Is it the end of the year? It really depends. We depend a lot on our other IT teams, our other IT teams to kind of help us through our days. So, is there a new software deployment? Is there, a hardware refresh? you know, it really depends, and it forces us to be pretty resilient, think on our feet, you know, and just have a very broad understanding of IT, and truly what the business is doing, so that you know, we can come prepared to attack the day.
So think about the time when you first entered into your education field or your first entry-level position. Think about that time compared to now. What would you tell yourself as a beginner stepping into the world of education and the workforce? What would you tell yourself then based on your experience that you have now? Jamie, let's start with you.
I would tell myself probably the same advice my parents gave me a long time: work hard. The world is really small. Everyone knows everyone. So it's a very small world. Work ethic means a lot. Honesty and integrity means a lot. You always have to keep learning, always. I think that's especially true in the IT field. If you're a good IT person, you have to love this field, because they said last year we had, what, 20 years of digital transformation. You have to keep up from that. But even if you're not per se an IT person, which I claim not to be, again, I get them jobs and build their careers, you have to keep up with it to understand the tools to make yourself successful. But soft skills go a long way. I hear again and again from managers, I can teach them what they need to do in this job, but I can't teach them a work ethic. I can't teach people skills. I can't teach them how to advocate. Like, those are things that you have to constantly be aware of. But the world is small, and be a good human. I guess that's just huge advice all the way around.
That's great advice. Thanks, Jamie. James, back to you. What about you? What would you tell your younger self?
Jamie actually just said some really valid points. And, you know, one other thing that I was going to add is something that she talked about earlier about how networking is, how she can help people network and find opportunities. And that's one of those things that I wish I would have started doing earlier. Really networking and building relationships early on in my career, and then taking the time necessary to foster those relationships as I continue to grow year by year. You never know when you are going to need to rely on someone to get into another position, or to really help you move to that next level, whether it's internally or externally. So it's always good to join those, create those relationships. And that's a part of how I was able to kind of progress and get into the role here, because I was able to start networking and building those relationships. So I understand now, but it would have been great to do that a lot sooner.
Yeah, great advice. I think networking is key, and even really just having a mentor, somebody that has been in the field with experience that you can learn from, and make sure that you're always a student. Casey, I know that you're leading the service desk right now, and you have a ton of projects going on. What other disciplines are involved in planning out projects? And then what value add do they provide to the solution?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. A good, you know, organizational mindset really helps. Otherwise, you know, you're going to sink. Yeah, I mean, that's the key, right? And it's knowing what's most important, right? And being able to say, you know, say to yourself, say to the individuals you're working around, is this the most important thing that we're working on? You know, to really be able to drive those projects, you know, to completion, or you know, to the finish line. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest key, and being the advocate for it. You know, if you kind of sit in the background and you're not advocating for the project, you're not speaking up, you know, those things just fall by the wayside.
Thank you. Any other advice, Jamie, that you would provide somebody who is planning out a project, leading an event, or anything that you guys have going on? What advice would you give, and help that might be helpful to answer that question as well?
I think we all forget to ask for help. You have to speak up. I think that's something I missed early on in my career. I just kind of put my head down and did my job. And I think in Wisconsin, maybe we're taught to be so humble. I'm constantly doing that with resumes. I'm like, listen, let's talk about some of the things we've done and promote, give yourself the credit for the work that you've done. Because if your boss doesn't know you're doing it, it's hard to do that. So.
James, I want to give you the opportunity to answer that question as well. When it comes to projects, you talked about leading a team of 97. And so that takes a lot of project planning and discipline as well. So what advice would you give?
The first thing that comes to mind is change management. So with any rollout or deployment, you have to understand who will be impacted by the change that you make, right? So you need to understand from an end customer standpoint, how they use a specific technology. Make sure you have that feedback across the board. So I have one area of Northwestern Mutual that may use a specific technology one way, but then on the other end of the spectrum, another team may use it a different way. So being able to get that voice of customer throughout the process. So I may have interaction with compliance, finance, those end customers, various business users. So who's ever involved that will be impacted by change, that's who I'll need to get the buy-in and advocates for to make sure that any project is successful.
Thank you. I know Jamie mentioned earlier the importance of soft skills. So James, I'm actually going to shoot this back to you as well. What skills, both technical and soft skills, would you say are needed to be successful in this career field?
There's a number of ones that come off the top of my head. So one of which is effective communication. So you never know when you're going to have to talk about your project or really try and sell your project to whatever team or leadership that you need to talk to, whether it's trying to get funding or it's trying to get someone to actually join in and be an adopter of that technology. You need to be self-motivated and passionate about what you do and driven to learn. So Jamie talked about how you need to kind of stay on top of technology. And in my role, we are at the tippity top of the first ones to get a lot of the new technology that comes through our company. So that's important to make sure that you're passionate. And then the last thing is a problem solver. So every single day, which Casey mentioned that in our area, there's all these different issues that may come up. And we always have to have that problem solving mindset so that we can tackle those problems easily.
Casey, anything you want to add?
I think another big one, I mean, and James was right on point with all of those. And I think we forget about it sometimes is that empathy, right? Is to understand who on the other line, whether it's a service, a service interaction, whether it's a project you're doing, whether it's a business stakeholder, it's having empathy for the situation that they're in, with the problem they have, and how can you help? And I often talk to folks a lot about don't listen to answer, right? Listen to understand, really. I mean, and that's what are they truly asking you? Not what are they telling you, but what are they asking you? And I think sometimes, and that's one of those difficult ones, right? Jamie talked about, right? The soft skills. That's a difficult one to teach. Sometimes, the really good folks, they either have it or they don't, and the ones that do, I mean, you can tell, and they move through an organization quick because they're able to really hone in on the true ask rather than, what's on the surface.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is that not only effective communication, but effective listening too. They're both vital, and I see this career having the need for a customer service hat sometimes too, providing all of those things to anyone internally and externally is really going to make a big difference for your organization. So speaking to the audience today, there's going to be some people that are really exploring an IT service desk career or IT in general, and they don't have this experience. They don't have the certificates needed, but they have a set of strengths and interests and skills. How would you help or recommend somebody to take their current skills and apply them to the role that you guys have right now, or the opportunities that you guys come across now? How would you help them just transfer their skills so that they can see they would be a fit for IT? Jamie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, there you go. I think sometimes we forget about transferable skills. There's a manager I'm working with in Milwaukee right now, and he asked me, he's working with some entry-level candidates, and he asked me, he goes, ask them if they're good, if they're the one who sets up the game console at their house, and either you're a tinker or you're not. I mean, I'm not the one to help my kids build their Lego sets. It still confounds me to this day, right? That isn't the way my mind works, and I'm really okay with that concept. And I think IT is a great field, but you also have to grasp and go, okay, is this the way my brain works? Because sometimes you are just pushing a rock up a hill, and that's not going to be helpful to you. And IT is really broad. There's so many different avenues you can go to it. And going back to what James and Casey said, some really technical IT people will get really frustrated that someone less technical will get promoted before them, but that's usually always because of their soft skills. So soft skills are huge. I don't want to laugh when IT people tell me, I'm like, so why'd you get in IT? I like IT. I'm a gamer. Good for you. Awesome. Congratulations. Or I'll say, how did you stay current with IT? And that's really important given what happened over the last year and a half. I want an IT person to be the tinker. I mean, I hate my home office right now because my husband is an IT person. It's got cables and wires and everything, but that's how he stays current, right? You have to want to stay current. I love that you guys have a relationship with MATC. I love people coming out of Best Buy Geek Squad type positions. You can volunteer and get hands-on experience. An IT person I know was the network guy, but he wanted to learn about websites. So he went and built a website for a nonprofit. Nonprofits always need help. Then he could put that on his resume, and all of a sudden his boss is like, oh, you can do this. So you have to take that initiative and want to learn to do things. I mean, we are really fortunate, I think, in Wisconsin that we have MATC, we have WCTC. I tend to lean towards the public schools versus the private, although the privates are really good too. I want them to interact and learning from others. Getting an A+ is huge. Having customer service skills, I have 2 teenagers. I'm like, I need you guys to go out and interact and go work at Home Depot for a weekend, and interact and work with humans and show me what it's like to be at work on time. Because 9 times out of 10, that's why I let people go, because they just simply aren't showing up to work. And Casey may laugh at that, but I think he knows what I'm saying is very true. You have to want to learn, you have to go back. And I think there's a lot of good opportunities in Milwaukee to get an education in IT. And help desk is a great place to start, and it's a great place to stay. You're not going to come out of school and become a network engineer without any experience. That's like asking someone to go to school for retail management and letting them run a store and they've never been a cashier. It's just not, it doesn't make any sense. Casey's a better manager because he spent time on the front lines for years. He gets it. So I could spend hours on this. So please reach out and I will gladly understand. But you have to want to learn and tinker and continue to play.
Yeah, does anyone want to add to that as well?
I just wanted, I'll let you go ahead, Casey.
I would say, Jamie and I have worked together for, since our kids met in daycare when I first moved to Wisconsin, and it is truly that, right? And Jamie knows all the reasons as to why I'm going to tell somebody that they're no longer working for me. But and I would say, kind of leaning towards the positive, and I tell this really to anyone, whether it's service desk or a level 3 engineer. Your drive and your desire in your own career determines your reality and your path. The most difficult thing for me as a manager and a leader is when I ask an associate, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And they say, I don't know. Because it's kind of like the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, right? Where do you want to go? And he's like, and she doesn't know, and he's like, well, then I can tell you anywhere, and you'll get there. But is it truly where you want to go? And so having that associate, be the advocate for their own career and driving it. We as leaders, should be the navigators, should be the co-pilots, should be, those pushing and prodding and getting you to where you want to go. But, the individual has to drive it. They have to own their career. I think anyone on this panel wouldn't be here today if they hadn't taken that step and said, this is mine and this is where I want to be.
And James, it looks like you had, yep, go ahead. You have a final thought, go ahead.
Thank you. Cool. So the last thing I just want to say is really good to piggyback on what Jamie was saying too, is find those opportunities. Even if like you're doing stuff on voluntary basis at a nonprofit, there's ways to get experience outside of work. So like there's internships, there's apprenticeships, but then there's those other opportunities that you kind of carve out and make for yourself. I think about, like, I was always one that was a tinkerer, like taking things apart at home and probably freak my mom out half the time, like, because you never know whether or not it'll go back together correctly, right? And then when I was I went through helping out my church with their website. So I was like their webmaster. Then from a event standpoint, I started like planning out events. So I was able to utilize like project management skills, like an event planning and being able to kind of convey those transferable skills. Like when I actually went into that job interview and say, hey, I've applied my skill sets in a number of different ways. There may not be in that specific area, but I can utilize those same skills and apply it to this particular role. So that's important.
Thank you for that. I think when I first heard IT service desk, there's a stigma that I think a lot of people who aren't informed or have any knowledge about IT, they're like, I'm just going to call them and they're going to tell me to restart, unplug my computer, and that's what the IT service desk does. In this panel, I've learned a lot, and I've seen Jamie, who's a recruiter, James, who's a digital ambassador. Sounds like a cool and a fun job. And Casey, you're leading a team in West Bend Mutual. What, if we can wrap up this conversation, what would you tell somebody who's exploring IT to get rid of that stigma? Like, what would you let them know, and what do you want them to be the biggest takeaway about an IT career? Casey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think to shed the stigma of the IT service desk, right? You're walking in on the front porch of IT, and you get to see it all. So it's not right. If you went to school for network engineering and you walk in and now all of a sudden all you're working on in the network, that's not the case. You get to see and hear and feel it all. You may not be able to solve all of it, but right, it's going to pique your interest. You may walk into the role thinking I'm going to be a cybersecurity guru when I grow up, and then all of a sudden you see the stuff that comes through on cybersecurity and you run away, or you run to it, right? And so I mean, with any of the disciplines, it's all there for the taking. And I think it's a huge opportunity, because you don't have to narrow your focus really until you learn it all and say, this is what I want to be when I grow up. It's a great opportunity. You get to network with pretty much everyone in IT. So all of the leaders, all of the people, and just truly everybody that can help you drive your career forward at that organization and down the road.
Great, thank you. James.
Two things. So one of which is, if this is an area of technology that you really want to get in and jump into, don't let anyone talk you out of it. Don't give up on it, and continue to push yourself to do the set goals for yourself and do what you want to do. The other part of it is, we talked about those transferable skills, and any position that you're in, even if you start kind of at this lower level, make sure you find ways to mark down what are you learning at this level that you can use for your next position. So every position that I've been in, there's something that I've taken away to be able to apply at that next role. And I'm always looking for opportunities to continue to grow and step out of my comfort zone, so that I can take on things that'll stretch me, but I know it'll prepare me for that next position.
Getting out of your comfort zone, that's huge. That's a big one. Jamie, go ahead and close us out.
Sure. I want to mimic what Casey said. I think the help desk is kind of, we talk about it as entry level, but it's a really good window to all the different disciplines that are out there. And it's a really great way to hone your soft skills. And those skills you're getting, I mean, last year when COVID hit, I mean, there were network engineers who became help desk people, right? Because all of a sudden everyone had to have a PC. So it's always there. The days of IT sitting in the basement and no one really know who they are, that doesn't exist anymore. IT is a very big, vital part of every organization. And COVID did teach us that, because without the IT, it would have been a whole different picture. I found that I'm running into some of the most creative, interesting, I don't want to say quirky, but people in IT are never ever bored, because they have to learn and learn and learn and learn. And they have really interesting hobbies. I mean, it's a fun field to be in. The creativity that goes on is interesting. It's becoming more diverse, which we needed it to become more diverse. It's great. It's a fun field to get into. There will always be jobs in IT. I don't see that ever going away. But the job you get hired in to is not probably going to be there in a couple of years, which goes back to James's point. You always have to be learning and growing and keeping yourself up with the latest and greatest changes out there.
That's great. I just want to thank you all. I want to say that having a panel like this and having access to leaders like yourselves is really the key to educating the community and Milwaukee about what we're doing here, and really just educating them and bringing to light, if you're the one who wants to take apart toys and electronics and see how they work, that's a skill, that's a curiosity that's going to lead you right into the IT world. So thank you guys so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I know we'll be connected soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.